Hey, folks, it's your boy, the boss of economics, back with another episode of What the Hell is Happening to Our Economy? The show where we slice through the government's economic clownery with the sharpest blade of satire, data, and stone-cold facts. Today, we're diving headfirst into President Trump's latest tariff tirade, a policy so reckless, it's like handing a toddler a flamethrower in a fireworks factory. Buckle up, because we're about to expose the economic carnage, criticize the government's mismanagement, and show you how this mess is tanking your wallet, your job, and your future. Let's go. Alright, let's start with the headlines that have been buzzing louder than a beehive on Red Bull. President Donald Trump, in his infinite wisdom, has doubled down on his aggressive tariff regime, vowing to slap hefty levies on imports of copper, pharmaceuticals, and pretty much anything else that crosses his desk. He set a hard deadline of August 1, 2025, with no extensions, or so he claims, despite flip-flopping more times than a politician at a pancake breakfast. Trump's even threatening a 50% tariff on copper, a 200% tariff on pharmaceuticals, and random 10% levies on BRICS countries just for existing. Oh, and let's not forget his beef with the EU over tech taxes, because apparently, trade wars are the new Pokemon cards, gotta collect 'em all. On the surface, this looks like classic Trump swagger, big promises, bold threats, and a social media megaphone blaring, tariffs will start being paid on August 1, 2025, no extensions. But here's the kicker, folks, this isn't just posturing, it's a ticking economic time bomb. And guess who's holding the detonator? Yep, the same guy who thinks trade deficits are a personal insult and national security threats lurk in every foreign pill bottle. But don't take my word for it, let's peel back the layers of this economic onion, from the surface bluster to the deep-rooted disasters, and show you why this tariff tantrum is a masterclass in government mismanagement, threatening to plunge us into a recession deeper than the Mariana Trench. Let's start with the obvious, markets hate uncertainty, and Trump's tariff threats are the economic equivalent of a tornado siren in a trailer park. The S&P 500 wavered, treasuries tanked, and copper futures spiked to their largest intraday gain since 1988. Why? Because investors aren't dumb, they know tariffs are a tax on businesses, consumers, and global trade flows. When Trump slaps a 50% tariff on copper, it doesn't just hurt foreign producers, it hammers U.S. manufacturers who rely on copper for everything from wiring to electronics. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, the U.S. imported $4.9 billion worth of copper in 2023, with over 40% coming from countries like Chile and Canada. A 50% tariff means higher costs for American businesses, which means higher prices for you, the consumer. And don't even get me started on pharmaceuticals. Trump's threat of a 200% tariff on drug imports is the kind of policy that makes you wonder if he's trying to win a Nobel Prize in economic sabotage. The U.S. imports roughly 30% of its pharmaceuticals, with a market value of $160 billion annually, according to the FDA. Slapping a 200% tariff on that would triple the cost of life-saving drugs overnight. Imagine telling a diabetic patient, sorry, your insulin now costs as much as a small car because Trump wants big pharma to build factories in Ohio. This isn't America first, it's patients last. Now, let's zoom out and look at the ripple effects, because tariffs don't just stop at the border, they tsunami through the entire economy. First up, jobs. Trump loves to crow about bringing manufacturing back to the U.S., but here's the dirty little secret, tariffs often destroy more jobs than they create. A 2023 study by the National Bureau of Economic Research found that Trump's 2018 tariffs on steel and aluminum led to a net loss of 75,000 U.S. jobs, as higher input costs crushed downstream industries like auto manufacturing and construction. Fast forward to 2025, and his new copper tariffs threaten to do the same. The Copper Development Association estimates that the U.S. copper industry supports 1.2 million jobs, but most of those are in downstream sectors that rely on affordable copper imports. Jack up the price, and those jobs vanish faster than a politician's promises after Election Day. Next, inflation. We're already battling sticky inflation. The Consumer Price Index, CPI, rose 3.4% year-over-year in June 2025, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, well above the Federal Reserve's 2% target. Now, Trump wants to pour gasoline on the fire by raising the cost of imported goods. The Peterson Institute for International Economics estimates that Trump's proposed tariffs could add 1.3 percentage points to U.S. inflation, pushing the CPI to nearly 5% by mid-2026. That's not just a statistic, folks, that's your grocery bill, your utility bill, and your rent all going through the roof. And let's not forget supply chains. Remember the chaos of 2021, when global supply chains were tangled worse than a pair of earbuds in your pocket? Well, Trump's tariffs are about to make that look like a walk in the park. By targeting BRICS countries like India, a key supplier of generic drugs and textiles, and threatening the EU, Trump is risking retaliatory tariffs that could choke off U.S. exports. In 2024, U.S. exports to the EU totaled $350 billion, according to the U.S. Trade Representative. If the EU slaps counter tariffs on American goods, as they did in 2018, industries like agriculture and aerospace could lose billions, costing tens of thousands of jobs. Now, let's dig deeper into the structural damage, because Trump's tariff tantrum isn't just a domestic disaster, it's a global one. Trade wars aren't fought in isolation, they're a domino effect of economic destruction. When Trump slaps a 10% tariff on India for being part of BRICS, India doesn't just sit there and take it, they retaliate. In 2019, India imposed retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods like apples and almonds, costing American farmers $1.2 billion in exports, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Flash forward to 2025, and India could escalate further, targeting U.S. tech and energy exports. Then there's the EU, which Trump seems to think is his personal punching bag. His frustration over digital services taxes, which, by the way, are a legitimate response to U.S. tech giants like Google and Amazon paying peanuts in European taxes, could spark a transatlantic trade war. The EU has already warned it could impose $20 billion in counter tariffs on U.S. goods, according to a 2024 European Commission report. And don't forget China, which Trump claims to have a truce with but could easily reignite hostilities if his BRICS tariffs disrupt their economic sphere. The result? A global recession. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, warned in its July 2025 World Economic Outlook that escalating trade tensions could shave 0.8% off global GDP by 2027, with the US bearing the brunt at a 1.2% GDP loss. That's not just numbers, folks, that's a full-blown economic contraction, with layoffs, bankruptcies, and a stock market crash that makes 2008 look like a picnic. And now, we arrive at the heart of the matter, the core of Boss Economics' world's mission, exposing the government's mismanagement as the root cause of this economic dumpster fire. Let's be real, Trump's tariffs aren't about protecting American workers or national security, they're about ego, political theater, and a fundamental misunderstanding of how modern economies work. His claim that tariffs will bring back manufacturing jobs ignores the reality of automation, which the McKinsey Global Institute estimates will replace 70% of U.S. manufacturing jobs by 2030, regardless of trade policy. His obsession with trade deficits, which he calls being treated worse, ignores the fact that deficits are driven by domestic savings and investment imbalances, not foreign cheating. Worse, Trump's tariff strategy is a masterclass in inconsistency. One day, he's pushing back deadlines and negotiating deals, the next, he's threatening 200% tariffs on drugs. This flip-flopping creates uncertainty that kills business investment. According to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, business investment in the U.S. fell by 2.1% in Q2 2025, with 60% of surveyed CEOs citing trade policy uncertainty as the primary reason. And let's not forget the cost to taxpayers. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that Trump's tariffs have already cost U.S. consumers $125 billion since 2018, with the new 2025 tariffs projected to add another $80 billion annually. But hey, why let facts get in the way of a good tweetstorm, right? Trump's economic policy is what happens when you let a reality TV star run a $27 trillion economy. It's all drama, no substance, and the audience, that's us, get stuck with the bill. So, here's the Boss Economics world verdict, folks, Trump's tariff tantrum is a one-way ticket to Recessionville, and the government's mismanagement is the conductor of this runaway train. The data doesn't lie, inflation is spiking, jobs are at risk, supply chains are crumbling, and global trade is on the brink of collapse. And for what? A few photo ops of Trump signing executive orders and bragging about winning trade wars that nobody wins. Here's my message to the White House, stop treating the economy like a game of Monopoly where tariffs are your get-out-of-jail-free card. Stop pretending that taxing imports will magically bring back the 1950s manufacturing boom. And for the love of all that is holy, stop threatening to triple the cost of life-saving drugs in the middle of a healthcare crisis. To my audience, the hardworking folks worried about your financial future and the finance pros trying to navigate this chaos, here's my advice, brace yourselves. Diversify your investments, hedge against inflation, and start lobbying your representatives to put an end to this economic madness. Because if we don't, the only thing Trump will be winning is a spot in the history books as the guy who tanked the economy faster than you can say, art of the deal. That's all for today, folks. If you liked this episode, smash that like button, subscribe, and share it with everyone who needs to know the truth about our economic clown show. This is the Boss of Economics, signing off, stay sharp, stay skeptical, and stay solvent.